What it is, everybody? It's your boy back with another extra video. Yeah, we reacting to three OnlyFans horror stories animated. I've had this on my computer for I think a week. It might have been a little bit longer than that. I've been meaning to react to it, I just haven't. But that changes tonight. So anyway, without further ado, I was gonna say something. Let's go ahead and get into this because it's like 30 minutes. So. All right, here we go.
The following story is something I never really talk about, something that I hate bringing up constantly, but I feel like I need to get it off my chest. It happened around 2 spring breaks ago, but it continues to traumatize me to this day. I'm an Instagram model and an aspiring supermodel from Glendale, California, a city in the greater LA area. My modeling career was starting to really take off. I was getting some clothing brand deals and was starting to garner a
For
higher
a
amount of
second, I thought
followers.
she was like
I
caressing her
eventually
phone.
expanded my income
Oh,
sources
she
from just Instagram modeling to other things. One of them was OnlyFans. I started an OnlyFans account where my followers and fans can pay to see more exclusive photos of me, and that seemed to be going great. I never got any requests from any creeps, and people were overall accepting of my
That's
decision.
surprising.
I eventually started gaining a lot of friends from both the online modeling and OnlyFans community. I even started collaborating with other online models and influencers. I ended up meeting a girl named Megan through other Instagram and OnlyFans connections. Megan was actually newer to this whole gig than me, but was gaining
So all these
traction
people
even
with
quicker.
these six
Things were going really good
navels.
for her, and we eventually met
Six
in person at
navels.
an event. She seemed really chill, and soon a friendship was born. We would do various collaborations on OnlyFans and Instagram, and would eventually even just hang out for the fun of it. One night, however, I was scrolling through my emails and got a text message from Megan. Apparently, a really famous online influencing team is interested in both Megan and I. Sure, I'd been scouted before, but never from an organization this large. Apparently, an agent from the modeling group reached out to Megan after seeing a photo of her and I on Instagram. They said they'd like to collaborate with us on Instagram, giving us a large sum of money and free
I'm
promotion
like,
of our
hey, they'll be
OnlyFans in
like, come have
return.
a seat.
It
It's gonna
seemed
be a
great,
black
but
couch.
almost too good to be true.
So, what do
I
you
wanted to
think
confirm
about
myself that this was a legitimate
lesbian?
agent, not some sort of troll or scam. But when I checked the supposed agent's profile, everything seemed to check out. He had a lot of
Like,
followers,
what do you think about
real
anal?
posts, and a professional page. His email had a proper domain on it too. This was really happening. Megan and I immediately asked the agent for more details, and he explained to us how it'd work. They were based in San Diego, about 2 hours away from us in LA. They wanted to do a quick photo shoot with both of us in it and discuss future opportunities while we were there. They claimed they had booked out a hotel room in the south of San Diego, and they do the shoot at a local beach. It seemed legit, so we set up a
Is that
time
just
and
2
booked the
hours
bus
away?
over
'Cause
there.
I've driven
I
from
was
LA to
excited,
San Diego.
but not as much as Megan though.
I think it took like
Megan was
5 hours,
thrilled for
but
the
we
whole
were in
idea.
traffic for a long
She had only
time.
been at this for about a year, and now she was working with the big companies already. It was like a dream come true for her. We eventually arrived at the hotel, and
I
while it
ended up
wasn't a
going to sleep
5-star
because I
resort,
was
it was
tired.
decent. We were greeted by an unusually casually dressed man at the front door. Megan and Lisa, right? He asked us with a grin on his face. Yes, that's us, replied Megan jubilantly.
Is this a human
Alright,
trafficking
follow me.
thing?
We got a room booked for you guys upstairs.
I feel like
The
this
man guided us
human
to our hotel
trafficking
room and we unpacked. Megan was still ecstatic. Can you believe this is happening? She asked. I was happy too, but I kept doubting her decision. The man who escorted us to our room didn't seem very professional, but hell, he could just be having a long day. Eventually, we got a knock on the door. It was the man from before. He said he'd take us to the venue once we were ready, and we were. He picked us up in a rather nice car, but something didn't add up. He claimed it was the company car, but it clearly had a local rental sticker on the license plate. I again shrugged it off and got in the car. Throughout the car ride, he kept eyeing us from the rearview mirror.
Wait a minute, you doing
He
human
asked us a few
trafficking in a
basic
rental
questions
car?
like how was our flight and where
Wouldn't that
we were
cause
from.
like a
He really wasn't
trail?
that inviting, especially for a
Like a
brand
paper trail?
ambassador. I stared wondering again
Oh, I guess
whether
if
or
you
not
pay
this
cash,
was a
but
bad
it's
idea,
still
and whether I should ruin
you gotta
Megan's mood
give
and
them
let
your
her know of
ID.
my concerns. But my thought was interrupted by the car coming to a halt. We had arrived. It was a small and secluded beach area, and honestly, it was beautiful. We were going to be doing our shoot on a boat which is parked at the shore, and we would be traveling to a small nearby island with another
Oh
beach
fuck
on it.
no, hell no.
On the boat was about 4 to 6 men, middle-aged, and seemingly they were the camera crew. The boat was actually quite large. It was no yacht, but it did have an upper deck and a lower floor.
Shit.
The whole setup was a bit unusual, especially for
Oh
a
no, I would
company
have
of this
asked like a
size.
few
I didn't
friends
see much
to go with
equipment
me.
or a supervisor at all.
Well, at least one
No
of them that
director,
has a gun.
no makeup
Hey,
artists,
bring your
just
gun
the
along,
men.
just in case.
Before we all got on, they searched
If
through
I
our
was gonna do
handbags
this.
and said they'd hold on to them for the ride. This was really starting to alarm me.
Yeah,
But
why
the
are you
boat started
searching this
moving
shit?
and we were on our way. While Megan went up the deck and enjoyed the breeze, I went to the lower compartment of the boat and used a very small bathroom in it. As I was washing my hands, I couldn't help but think of how odd this whole gig was. I didn't see a single camera in sight, and the men on board seemed to be trying to pass as much time as possible. That's when I saw a shadow from the door. Underneath it was a pair of feet. Someone was watching me. I quickly thought about what to do. Why was this man just standing there? Was he waiting to use the bathroom too? Did he just happen to be waiting by the door while I was there?
Nah, he
Next thing I
waiting.
noticed,
Grab
there was
your
2
ass.
pairs of feet under the door, side by side. I knew that they were ganging up on me at this point. I mustered every last bit of courage in me and barged open the door, knocking both of them over. While they were down and in pain, I quickly thought of what to do next, but that's when it hit me.
Run?
Megan was still at the top deck. I then heard violent trashing followed by Megan's muffled screams.
Oh my.
I quickly ran up the stairs only to be tripped over by one of the men. I grabbed a water bottle from nearby and threw it at his head. That seemed to keep him off me for a bit. But as I got on my feet and tried to run towards the room where Megan's screams were coming from, he tried to headlock me from behind. I violently
Yeah, because
trashed
you're just
around and
standing
bit
there.
down on his hand as hard as I could. He yelled in pain and threw me off to the side. I tripped over the side railing and landed in the water,
Oh wow.
still hearing Megan's screams all muffled up. I tried to swim back to the boat, but it was useless.
Oh
I
damn.
somehow managed to float back ashore and was taken in by a local lifeguard crew. They took me into the emergency room where they tended to my fight wounds, and I explained to them and the police everything that happened. The boat, the hotel, the rental car, the sketchy men. They managed to make 1 or 2 arrests in San Diego, but the men who took Megan were never found.
Oh
The police
damn.
believed that they had crossed into Tijuana and were somewhere off in Mexico. They even tried getting Mexican law enforcement in it too, but they couldn't find anything either. Not even the hotel and car rental company had any answers. I was shattered. I lost my best friend solely due to the fact that I didn't want to speak up on my suspicions. When I asked
Did you
the
should
modeling
just punch
agency
her in
how
the
they could
face?
just let this happen and how they could hire people like this, they promptly replied to me stating that they never hired
it
a man
wasn't
of
them.
this name. The account, the followers, the photos, the email, all of them were fake. It turns out the entire thing was some sort of lure for a human trafficking ring, and Megan and I were the victims. To
Damn.
this day, I still don't know where Megan is. This incident has left me traumatized and left my career changed permanently.
That's
The
fucked
story I'm about
up.
to tell you is something that I'm still in
Yes,
disbelief
that's why
of today.
women go to the
Crazy
bathroom.
things
to
happen all the
kill
time, but even with
Sheesh.
that in mind, the situation I was
God,
knee
that's
deep in was
fucked up.
honestly unfathomable. I struggle to even listen to the words OnlyFans without shuddering today. This happened when I was in college, so really not that long ago. I was an engineering student, and I would often find myself in the library either doing work or catching up with other students
Yeah,
in my
you can-
college. The library was an interesting place. It seemed to attract a lot of different students from all over
I
campus,
took some engineering
all with
class
their
for
own unique
May.
tastes and experiences.
I was like,
The
how
people and
do
their thinking
engineers
processes
do
were
this?
very diverse. This meant that I'd end up meeting people
Even
with
the
a widely
smart people in
different
my
series
class
of
were
interests
stressed
in
out.
me.
Like, maybe it was just a
One of them was a
teacher.
beautiful young woman named Rose. We initially struck a conversation over something casual like our shoes or the weather, but soon considered ourselves decent friends. We eventually added each other on social media, and that's when I noticed it in her Instagram bio. She had an OnlyFans. Now, I personally didn't care that much. It's honestly something that we're starting to see more and more in our day and age. But I eventually realized that Rose's OnlyFans was actually quite the topic on campus. Most people I'd met seemed to have some opinion or another about Rose's OnlyFans. The
Damn.
opinions seem to be split in 2 different ways. One being impressed with her confidence and the fact that she's open about having an OnlyFans, and the other half being critical of her, feeling like she has no respect for herself and feeling that she'd do anything for money.
Why you
Now,
worried
I
about that?
personally
Man,
didn't
your
care that
business.
much. But one night, Rose seemed to be doing some sort of promotion on her
How
OnlyFans,
dare you not
and my
respect your
curiosity
client
spiked. She was
the
giving
way
her a
I
month of free
respect
content and
you? You
seemingly
will
trying to gain a
respect me the
bigger
way I
audience.
respect.
Now,
Or something
signing up
bad
for an
gonna happen to
OnlyFans wasn't exactly on my list of plans for that night, but she was giving it out for free, and I figured I should check it out. After all, the whole school was talking
I
about it,
figured I
so
could.
I used the
I get a
spam email
few
of
minutes
mine
to
and
jerk
signed
off.
up. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, to be honest with you. Nothing unexpected. Sure, it was somewhat awkward seeing Rose in photos like that, but hey, what was I expecting? I took a look at her subscriber count, and she seemed to have quite a lot of them. I could imagine that she's making quite a lot of money with this. A week or two passed by, and I honestly forgot that I even signed up for an account. It was interesting and all seeing Rose's OnlyFans, but I honestly had better things to do. But eventually, one of my college friends told me that something happened. He told me frantically to check her OnlyFans and social media. I opened my OnlyFans and saw it. She had been kidnapped. On her OnlyFans and Twitter was a photo banner with text on it. It stated that she'd been kidnapped, and the kidnappers were looking for a lot of ransom. It mentioned that we had a few days to get the money in,
Wait, what?
otherwise they'd harm her or kill her. They also included the detail that she's being kept at a secret location, so that
They trying to
made sure
get
that we
her
wouldn't find
followers
her.
to give them
This had to be some sort of joke, right? I
$500,000.
immediately
Or
messaged
five
her
was that?
various
Was
times
it
on
500?
every
That was
single
a
platform.
$500.
No response. I asked around to other people as to what they got from her.
I think it's supposed
They
to be
got no response
500,000.
either. All of us were in a panicked state. We had no idea what was happening or what to do. Was Rose pulling some sort of sick joke? Was she okay? That's when it hit us. Rose hadn't been seen all that past week. At that point, we knew that something might have actually happened. No one, not even her close friends, had a clue where she could be. We waited for another day, wondering when she'd drop this sick sort of joke. But that never
Why
happened.
didn't somebody call the
We started looking
police?
for her. Everyone on campus looked up and down the place for her, but there was no sign. Whether it was her usual hangout spot or less known places, there was absolutely no trace of her every square inch of the university. We then asked our professors, and they said the same thing. Her attendance report revealed that she had been absent the whole week. Things just kept getting weirder and weirder. Some of her close friends even contacted her family asking where she was, but none of them knew where she was either. We were really starting to get worried at this point.
Why
but we
is
didn't want to
anyone
start paying the
calling the
ransom just yet.
police?
After all, the kidnappers could just keep increasing the price. Several reports were signed to the university, and eventually a missing person case was submitted to the police. It started off with campus
Eventually.
security looking around and scanning for where she could be, but evolved to a full-on police warrant and search investigation. Even the cops were a bit stumped with the whole situation. They'd obviously seen kidnappings before, but asking for a ransom on an online platform, that wasn't exactly heard of. The police looked around the university themselves.
Yeah, that's pretty
but there was
bold.
still no sign of her. Eventually, a warrant for the search of Rose's home was finally approved, and we all looked inside her dorm. The apartment seemed completely normal, but her essential items such as her pillows and laptop were all gone. From this, we concluded that she might have been kidnapped while she was leaving and going somewhere. The police took a look at the security footage and noticed that her car seemed to have left the parking lot the supposed day of the kidnapping. The investigation was just getting weirder and weirder. All of us were extremely worried. We knew that someone or the other would have the motivation to kidnap Rose. After all, she was a wealthy, famous, and attractive young woman. She interacted with people online on a daily basis. There had to be some sort of creep or psycho who wanted to harm her. People had already started submitting small amounts towards her ransom. They just didn't want to take that risk of leaving it be. A day later, and it was trending all over social media. #SaveRose. The story even hit county news. Everyone in a 20-mile radius started talking about this, and eventually the police started to work overtime. They felt with the amount of publicity this case was getting, it really wouldn't look good on their part if they didn't find her. Eventually, the state troopers got involved too, and they started looking for her as well. The search continued, and with it our worries. Eventually, the ransom was
They
paid
look
off.
real
So
enthusiastic.
many people had pitched in small amounts that the money goal was hit. Was she free? Would the kidnappers just keep raising the ransom price? A few hours went by, but there was still no answer from Rose. We were at the peak of our fear. Normally something would happen by now, right? But no, none of us got an answer. But that next day, everything was answered. A highway patrol officer spotted the vehicle that was
It's like,
registered
'cause
to
she could be
Rose.
dead
It
already.
also was
You had
reported
no
missing
proof
at the
of
time.
life.
He immediately turned on his lights and pulled the car over. That
She
was
could have been
it.
dead this
The
whole
moment
time.
of truth. As he got up to the car door, the officer spotted Rose. He immediately took her out of the car and inspected it thoroughly, but she was the only one in it. The news hit us that Rose had been found, and she was taken back to the police station for questioning. All of us were relieved. We didn't understand the mysterious nature of her kidnapping, but at this point we were just glad that she was okay and back. But once again, things just kept getting stranger and stranger. Rose did not have a single scratch on her. The paramedics and investigators found no sign of any physical or mental trauma. Kidnapping victims would normally have either one of these. Rose was being rather evasive with the questions as well. She was overall vague about the situation and didn't seem spooked the slightest bit.
Okay.
But after even more question dodging, Rose was released. The
I guess they
investigation
can't really
continued,
prove anything.
but when she got back on campus, all of us were thrilled. We were just so worried for her. We had so many questions. Questions which Rose didn't seem to want to answer. We understood why. After all, she deserved some much needed time to herself. I tried to ask her some more questions
I ain't
one-on-one
trusting
when
this
everyone
bitch.
left her apartment, but she seemed to still be acting odd. She avoided every single question in the weirdest
I'd have
way
grabbed her like,
possible.
bitch, you gonna answer my
I
question.
decided to call it a day and headed back to my room. As I continued my walk home, I couldn't stop thinking about it though. Everything about this whole situation was just so odd. And for Rose to come back like nothing even happened, it just contradicts everything I could even think of. But then, it struck me. The ransom, the lack of evidence, Rose's lack of answers, something deeper was happening, and it involved her. The next morning I got up, and my phone was flooded with notifications. Rose was arrested. According to various news sources and friends, Rose had faked the whole thing for money. Rose wanted to get some quick fame and cash and somehow thought that doing a fake kidnapping would be the answer.
Wow.
The reason that
I
some of
figured
her
that's what
essential
this is gonna
items
go.
were missing was because she took them with her. She had left for some sort of beachside hotel. The location was remote enough to avoid suspicion, but not too close for comfort. She stayed there for a few days until the quote-unquote ransom was paid off. This explained everything. She was apparently caught after they tracked down all of the traffic cameras which spotted her car. They managed to find the location she had traveled to and back from. Rose was
Everybody's
sued for all the
eyes
ransom she
all
collected
fucked up.
and lost even more than she gained in remaining lawsuits. She was charged with public mischief as well as false reporting. The charges stacked up to a high-level misdemeanor, and she was sentenced to a year in prison. My jaw was on the floor as I heard all of
Yeah, it
this.
doesn't seem like it
We
was
were all
worth it.
so upset with her, so upset with ourselves. How could we really fall for this? How could she do such a thing?
She's
I
a
still
bitch.
haven't heard from
So,
Rose, but the story is something that I will never forget. To this day, OnlyFans is something I'd never think of in the same light again. What I'm about to tell you is something that you probably won't even believe happened. Hell, not even in my wildest dreams did I fathom something like this occurring. I can't even put into words how awful my fear and anxiety was that day. Never in my life have I had to actually fear for my safety, but needless to say, I definitely will not be using OnlyFans ever again. This actually happened when OnlyFans was not that known. It was around 2017, which was 1 year after OnlyFans was founded. I came across a page which I was
Using
rather
real
intrigued
pictures.
by on my Instagram
It's
feed.
probably
I
like
stumbled across a very cute girl
like,
from my hometown, but I never really knew her. This was a time
copyright
in my
free,
life where I was really
like
introverted
pictures.
and rather socially awkward. So I had a lot of people added on my social media who I probably never even talked to. The only reason I even had Facebook and Instagram was to fit in as a college student. For reasons unknown, many very attractive women would always add me back on Instagram. I
No, those
initially
are
thought
fake.
this was due to the fact that we had mutual friends or
No.
that I was just a very handsome
Fake
man. But
accounts.
I eventually learned that following back was just a tactic to get more fame.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of my charming looks. Now, I was the kind of guy that would constantly like and comment under many hot girls' posts on Instagram. Some would call me a simp. Whenever I got a reply or like back from one of these women, I would immediately go to the PayPal or Cash App in their bio and leave them a huge tip with a thank you note. For some reason back then, this was my ego booster. I'm not exactly proud of this behavior today, but
Kissing
keep
the
in mind that I
phone.
was a rather different person back then. The sad part was my social anxiety prevented me from even
125.
DMing those girls. I didn't even try to make small talk with them. As sad as it is, I honestly expected these women to just ask me out and start giving me attention with all these donations I gave
Yeah,
them.
that's not what
So,
they
with
gonna
all of
do.
this in mind, you could imagine I was rather
They give you
thrilled
some
to see a
attention,
new
you can
link
give
in
them
one of
some
my
money.
favorite girls' bios. I immediately opened it and I was pleased with what I saw. The website was called OnlyFans, and now I could just subscribe and see any
I say
girl I
dudes,
want
they be
undressed
cash apping
without having to
chicks,
constantly
they
pay them
rent.
and annoy them in the
Like,
DMs.
damn.
Even though I just found out another new money pit,
I
it
ain't gonna
felt like
lie,
I'd won $1 million.
I was attractive
So I
chick.
did what I'd
Shit.
naturally do, and I subscribed. I wanted to believe that I was her first subscriber, and it really did seem like it at first. Initially, she seemed a bit shy. She wasn't showing much of her body, and obviously this upset me. I was expecting a lot more for my $15 a month. What she was posting seemed to be things that you could just post on Instagram. There was no nudity whatsoever. No nipples, no nothing. But me being the simp I am, I thought if I somehow just kept the subscription, she'd notice me and
Usually they
eventually
put in their
text me
description
first.
that they're not
A
gonna
few
show
months
nudity,
went
right?
by and things seemed relatively
I
normal.
guess.
She started posting some decent nude photos, but somehow I wanted to see more. Aside from college, I was working at Starbucks, and I put all of my money into donations for her.
Damn,
I
dude.
somehow felt that she was the
You
one.
simping
I really
hard.
thought that we would just go out one day and become
This dude
lovers.
fuck
But
has
one
another
day, I
job
found out
just
that
devoting
OnlyFans
their
had a
money
new
to
feature.
her.
Now, you
Like,
could DM your OnlyFans model and get more intimate photos. All you had to do was make a photo request and they'd send a link with the payment. I was delighted. Now, I could get more intimate content, more than just nudes. So I mustered all the strength I could to text her, and I did. After all, getting some nudes was a good enough excuse to
and
talk. I was
nervous,
shaking like
but
never
all
before.
you wrote was
I really didn't know what to
hi.
expect. But after a few
Having
minutes,
a damn
she
seizure.
replied. We eventually started to actually get to know each other. I couldn't believe it. It was actually happening. It started off with her sending a few nude photos for about $100.
And she just
Then
said, "Hey,
asked
how
me
are
if I'm from
you?"
the same
You
city as
immediately
her.
sent a $50 tip.
After looking up my profile on Instagram
Man,
with
you're
the
in the
same
same
username,
city.
which happened to be my full name unfortunately, she realized that she had come across me a few times in public before. I was sweating and almost gave myself an anxiety attack. I didn't want her to find out who I am. Normally online, I'd give myself a name like one of my favorite
I
video
thought that
game
was the whole
characters,
point
but
that you
this
wanted
time,
to do.
my browser
You wanted
automatically
them to
filled in
just
my
start a
real first and
conversation
last
with you and
name,
be like, "Hey,
and I
maybe we
hit
should date."
continue. I struggled to think
But
of
when
what
it
to
seemed like
say.
it
My
might be
mind
actually
was
happening.
racing. She
Now you're like, "Oh
definitely had
shit, I
some
didn't
mutual
want this
friends
to
with me,
happen."
and if they find out what I did online, they'd mock me
Oh, I guess he
endlessly at
didn't.
college. For some time, I tried to think of a way to escape the situation or leave the conversation, but I couldn't quite figure out anything. So I just answered with yes. From then on, we both got involved in an actual conversation. It turns out that she actually recognized me from college. She had seen me in person various times, and it turns out that one of her friends actually lives on the campus. We seem to have a lot in common, and we even realized that we were in the same place at the same time many times. We just never noticed each other. I was amazed. Never in my life did I think that I could have such a long and enduring conversation with someone,
Sound
especially
like
on
this
OnlyFans.
is.
At this point, I was less interested in asking her for nudes
She know
and more interested in asking her how
caught
her
him
day
and
went
just
or how
reeling
she
him
was
in,
doing.
or
It was almost
he
like
is
I
just
finally
reeling
had a
him in.
genuine relationship with a girl for the first time in my life. I soon realized that money wasn't the way to win a girl. And the irony was she was spending way more time with me now than when I was spending money on her. But one day, she told me that I'm so nice that she wants to switch over to Instagram. She even let me know that I can call her and gave me her number. I was blown away. She really wanted to step up our relationship. I could finally get myself a real girlfriend. To be honest, I didn't even believe that this was possible.
This is
I
the most
genuinely thought I was just
stereotypical,
going to be
like
single and
Hollywood
behind a
type
computer my whole life. Who
nerd
knew I'd find
virgin
my
type
first
shit.
girlfriend on
Act like
OnlyFans?
I
Things just
usually
kept
name
getting better
myself
from then
on
on.
my
We were
profile
texting
or
on
the
Instagram
video
for a
game
while
characters
and
that
I
I
decided to
like
actually
really.
call her. It was almost like I could feel a real connection with this woman. That was probably
Not
the
to say
first
that
time I
doesn't
could
happen.
call
It's
someone
just
without getting a straight up
so
panic attack.
It's
When
like
we talked on the
stereotypical.
phone, it felt like we had the same personality. We were identical in so many ways. Her voice was just so pleasant and comforting, and we talked for hours during the next few days. I really thought that she would be the
Okay,
one.
clearly
But the
something.
first
This
time
is the
ever,
actual
I didn't want
woman.
to wait any longer. I wanted
Somebody's
to meet her
roping
in
him
person
in
as soon as
to
possible.
set him up to get
She
robbed.
was happy with the news and eventually invited me over to her house. We agreed on a proper date and time and hung up the phone. I felt like I was on top of the world. After years of criticizing myself and feeling like I wasn't good enough,
What did
I
he
finally got one.
pee on himself?
I always thought that I needed
Hands
to be like
different
one of those
color, like
Instagram
around his
fuckboys, but
crotch.
it turns out that casual, nice guys like me do get a chance. The day of the date came, and I dressed myself up in
And
my
his
best
hair is
clothes
slicked
and went to a
back.
barber. I was so eager to meet her. I instantly booked an Uber, and he took me to her neighborhood. When I was approaching her house, however, I noticed an awkward man standing behind a tree. He seemed really sketchy and had a hood on. I couldn't even see his face or eyes. Normally, this would alarm me,
And he's
but I was just
barefooted.
so eager to go on a date with her that I shrugged it off. She opened the door and she was just as gorgeous as she was online, even prettier than I expected in person. She put her shoes on and we went for a walk. In the beginning, it was a little awkward, but I eventually got over the moments of dead silence and started an actual conversation with her. She seemed a bit nervous too, but once we got the ball rolling, everything went
Okay,
well.
so
We had a really
is
good
this
conversation
actually
and
like
didn't stop
really
talking until the
happening?
end of the date. I eventually walked her home and we waved goodbye.
This crazy
But
motherfucker
as I
just
was
gonna
leaving,
attack him?
when I turned my head around to see what was happening, I noticed the same exact weird guy from before. He was awkwardly approaching me, at first trying hard to hide it by looking around or avoiding eye contact, but eventually he was around 10 feet away, and there was no hiding this time. "Hey you," the man asked. Yeah, I replied. "Stop. Get over here." I stopped walking and turned around.
No.
Then he said,
Fuck?
"Who are you to her?"
Oh
Who am I
boy.
to her? What kind of question was that? As I was trying to think of an answer, I looked back up at the man and noticed that he was getting insanely enraged. He had this crazed look in his eyes like he was about to hurt me
Boy.
or something.
Okay, so that
"You
was
trying to hit on my girlfriend?" "Boy, you crossed a line," the man said. "What? I'm sorry. I think you're mistaking me for someone else. I really don't know what to say," I replied nervously. I started slowly backing away with my arm pushed out in
oh
front of me
boy.
just for protection. I looked down at his hands and he had them both inside his hoodie front pocket. I saw his facial expression change from enraged to even more furious. He started breathing heavily and clenched
Why is
his
this
teeth in
motherfucker
anger.
barefoot?
"You shouldn't have come here," the
Is he
man said.
homeless?
He then pulled out a gun from his front
Oh,
pocket and started firing it at me. I just fell on the sidewalk. I was in so much shock that I couldn't even feel any pain or take a breath. I just stared at him bluntly, adrenaline pumping through every ounce of my body. He then looked around and took off. After a few seconds, I let out a big, delayed scream. The adrenaline subsided and I felt like the worst pain in my life. I glanced around and I saw two big holes in the front of my knees. He shot me through both of my legs. I curled up in pain
in
and started
both
to black out.
knees.
I was slowly drifting away and I completely lost consciousness. I woke up in the hospital, still in disbelief of what happened.
Sheesh.
My mom was sitting on a chair next to my bed asleep. She woke up
He had
quickly
one
with
of
a
the
big
best
smile
days of
and
his
tears
life,
on her face.
followed by
She
one of the
explained to me what
worst
happened.
days.
One of the neighbors heard the gunshots and then spotted me in a puddle of blood. The guy that shot me had been taken into custody a few hours later. I had a few operations, but she told me that I would eventually walk after a long amount of time. I was devastated. I cried a lot that day. I asked myself why this could even happen.
Wow.
Why me? I could still feel the stabbing pain in my legs. It was unbearable. I couldn't sleep for the next few days. I could still feel the holes inside my knees, the bullets going into my leg. It was the worst pain of my life. I could barely move. That same day, I got a text from the girl I went on a date with, and it explained everything. The man was a subscriber to her OnlyFans like me. He also liked her and followed her on all social media. The only difference was the man was severely mentally ill, and he genuinely believed that she was his girlfriend.
This
He
motherfucker
often stalked her around town and somehow managed to track down her house.
is
She was
disheveled as
hiding there
shit.
daily behind the trees and bushes, making sure no one else would come to her house. She didn't even know this until the cops brought out the neighbor's security camera footage. He really believed in some sort of imaginary relationship and really thought that she was cheating on him by going out with me. After a few months, my
Damn.
health got a bit better and I gained my knee strength a bit back. According to the doctors,
That's
my legs would
crazy.
never be the same. The
Well, yeah,
medics
you get
said
shot
that
in
the
both
human body
knees.
rarely recovers completely from gunshot wounds, and that I probably would never be able to run or be able to do any heavy activity on my legs for the rest of my life. I lost contact with the girl shortly after that.
Oh,
There
damn.
was too many emotions tied with her, and there was no way I'm letting something like this happen again to me. She didn't seem to want to delete her OnlyFans account either, so both of us went our separate ways. I still don't know what happened to that man who shot me. Part of me feels bad for him and his condition, but the other half of me wants him to spend years in prison. I will never forgive him for the permanent damage to my legs. And that was the last time I ever went on OnlyFans.
Damn. You couldn't even stay with the chick either. He was like, well, like she's associated with uh, that bad experience, so I could understand him not wanting to be around her. But that is fucked up. Like I was thinking, okay, obviously this whole thing is like it's some trap or something. Like she's luring him to be robbed or something like that. And then she's actually interested in him. Actually go out on a date. And then this random motherfucker just shoots him like, this is my girlfriend. And he pulls out a gun. Just I was like, he just disheveled, barefooted motherfucker just pulls out a Glock or whatever and just shoots this in both knees. God, in the knees. Like, yeah, I was like, he had shot in both knees. His knee mobility is gonna go down drastically. So, but damn, I did not see that guy. Like I was like, okay, this got to be something fake, or some dudes like stole a girl's uh content and create a fake OnlyFans, and now he's like tricking guys to come around and like robbing them or something. Like, oh, we going on a date, so you go on a date. A lot of time he might, we like I've been on this. Yeah, I got debit card, credit card, but also bring cash just in case. You never know what may happen. Like I've had times when my card was locked because I made purchases. They're like, "Huh, you made purchases? You normally don't make these purchases, so they just lock my car." Never on a date, but hey, you never know. Somebody might get a hold of your information and empty out your account. You know, I mean, if I look at my account and I notice that, I'm like, oh, the date's over. I don't care if I got money to pay for the day. The date is over. But why is my? It looked like it's delayed like a second or two. And maybe I'm just I don't know. But damn, that's crazy. And that other story, that bitch, I was thinking that it was when the cop found her and she was fine, and then she was being like she didn't want to answer any questions and stuff like that. I was like, this bitch is she clearly either she did this herself or someone did it and she found out that it's someone that she knows that was close to her, a relative, and she don't want them to go to jail. So she's just like, oh, I don't know, like you making money on OnlyFans, but I guess she wanted $500,000 real quick. I don't like that was dumb. That was dumb of her to do that. But it's like everyone was mad at her. She like I said, like she definitely lost more and she gambled because she wasn't thinking about that. Like the long term consequences of that if she got caught. But I mean, I guess that's what anything. Anybody who does anything illegal, you don't. You're clearly not thinking about the long term ramifications of what happens if you get caught. Doing that thing. So you just thinking about the pros. You're not thinking about the cons until you're like, well, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. But that was good. Um, did I say what channel it's from? I think it's from Mort channel. They do narrations and stuff like that. Obviously, and animations. I think they sometimes do animations for other YouTubers. They just do narrations. But I like Mr. Nightmare and Nightmare Files. I haven't looked at a Nightmare Files video in a long time. I'll check out go back and look at his channel. I haven't gotten any recommendations from his channel, maybe because I haven't been on it in a while. But anyway, I'll put a link in the description down below so you go check out the channel yourself. You'll give them, like, subscribe to their channel. But if you like this video, you can hit that thumbs up button down below for me. Make sure you subscribe when you're here. Hit that bell. You'll be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. See y'all next time. Peace.